The city of New York shimmered below like a scattered constellation of diamonds. Above it all, in the opulent penthouse of the Thorn Tower, the annual Legacy Gala was in full swing. This wasn't just a party, it was a curated display of wealth, power, and inherited status, where every handshake was a transaction and every smile hid a calculation. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume, the clinking of champagne flutes, and the low hum of self-important conversation. Amidst this spectacle, a woman stood quietly near a floor-to-ceiling window, a simple crystal glass of sparkling water in her hand. Her name was Anya Vance. Her dress was a deep, unadorned navy blue silk that fit her perfectly, but lacked the ostentatious glitter of the other gowns. Her makeup was minimal. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple, elegant bun, and the only jewelry she wore was a delicate silver chain around her neck. She looked sophisticated, but utterly understated, an anomaly in a room where less is more was a foreign concept. Anya was here for work. Her best friend, a freelance journalist and photographer named Liam, had managed to secure a coveted spot to cover the gala for a prominent lifestyle magazine. He was currently navigating the crowd, his camera flashing, while Anya served as his quiet support, a silent observer in a world she technically owned, but had always chosen to remain apart from. She was the CEO of Vance Global Technologies, a company she had inherited from her father and had since grown into a tech empire spanning continents. Her private life, however, was a fortress. She avoided social media, rarely attended public events, and was a ghost to the gossip columns that adored figures like Serena Thorne. Serena Thorne. The name itself was a whisper in the room. A direct heiress to a legacy fashion house, she was the epitome of inherited luxury. Tonight, she was a walking masterpiece in a gown of shimmering champagne gold, a custom creation that was reportedly worth more than most people's homes. Diamonds dripped from her ears and neck, and her haughty smile was a well-practiced accessory. She moved through the crowd like a queen on a chessboard, every step deliberate, every glance a judgment. She was a celebrity in her own right, her every move chronicled by the press, her every whim catered to by her social circle. She was perfection, or at least she tried to be. Anya watched her from a distance, a sense of mild detachment washing over her. She had seen Serena's type 1,000 times. Women who believed their worth was tied to the price tag of their attire and the size of their inheritance. It was a suffocatingly small world, and Anya was content to stand on its periphery. Lost in her thoughts, Anya didn't notice when a server, rushing to avoid a cluster of socialites, accidentally bumped into her. The momentum of the collision made Arya stumble forward, her glass of water lurching out of her hand. In a cruel twist of fate, the contents of the glass splashed directly onto the front of Serena Thorne's pristine champagne gown. A gasp rippled through the immediate vicinity. The music seemed to stop, if only in Anya's mind. A single crystalline drop of water rolled down the front of Serena's gown, followed by a dark, rapidly spreading stain. It wasn't just water. It was water mixed with a faint, dark pigment from the olives in the drink, turning the delicate gold fabric a sickly, bruised brown. Serena froze, her eyes widening in disbelief, then narrowing into daggers of pure fury. She looked down at the stain, then up at Anya, her perfectly sculpted face contorting in a mask of disgust. "What in God's name is wrong with you?" she hissed, her voice cutting through the hushed silence. "Do you have any idea how much this gown costs?" Anya, though flustered by the accident, remained calm. "I am so sorry. It was an accident. The waiter bumped into me." "Oh, an accident?" Serena sneered, her voice dripping with venom. "Accidents happen to people who belong here, not to little mice who sneak in. Look at you. Your dress probably costs less than my shoes. What business do you have spilling your cheap beverages on a couture piece?" Her eyes raked over Anya's simple attire, a sneer plastered on her face. The surrounding onlookers, too timid to intervene, simply watched the spectacle unfold. A young waitress, her face pale with fear, rushed forward with a napkin. "Ma'am, please let me help. I can try to dab it." Serena's gaze shifted to the waitress, her expression hardening further. "Get away from me," she spat, swatting the waitress's hand away. "Don't you dare touch my dress with your filthy hands. You and this little nobody. You're both an embarrassment. You don't belong here, and you're ruining my night. Someone, get them out of here." The waitress flinched, her eyes filling with tears of humiliation. Anya's calm facade finally cracked. It wasn't the insult directed at her that stung. It was the utter contempt for the waitress, the casual cruelty of someone who saw people as nothing more than props in her life. Anya looked at the waitress, then at Serena, a flicker of something cold and dangerous lighting up her eyes. She was no longer just a bystander. The line had been crossed. Without another word, Arya dropped the now empty glass on a nearby table, her movements precise and deliberate. She gave Serena a long, unblinking look, the calm in her eyes now a chilling mask of indifference. She didn't apologize again. She didn't argue. She simply turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd, leaving a fuming Serena Thorne behind, standing alone with a bruised stain on her $1 million dress. Liam found her minutes later, looking for his friend and worried about the scene. "Anya, are you okay? I saw what happened. That woman, she's a piece of work." Anya smiled, but it was a thin, cold smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Liam, let's go. I think I've seen enough of this party for one lifetime." As they left the building, Anya pulled out her phone and made a call. The voice on the other end was her head of corporate intelligence, a man who had been with her since the beginning. "Daniel, I need you to do something for me. I need everything you can find on a woman named Serena Thorne. Her business, her social standing, her finances. I want every last detail, and I want it by morning." The car door closed behind her. Anya leaned back against the plush leather seat, the cold indifference in her eyes replaced by a fire of intent. She had no need for revenge, but for the first time in a very long time, she felt a burning need to teach someone a lesson. Serena Thorne had not just ruined a dress. She had committed the cardinal sin of Anya's world. She had shown a complete lack of class, not in her attire, but in her heart. And for that, she would pay a price far greater than any designer gown. The following morning, Anya sat in her sprawling penthouse office, a glass wall behind her offering a panoramic view of the city. The sun, a golden orb, was painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. The calm of the morning was a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside her. She wasn't an emotional person, not in her business dealings, but last night's encounter had touched a raw nerve. It wasn't just the insult. It was the sheer disregard for human dignity. Serena had acted as if she were a goddess, and others were mere insects to be swatted away. It was a kind of arrogance that Arya, having seen both the bottom and the top of the social ladder, could not abide. At precisely 8 a.m., Daniel's face appeared on her wall-mounted display. His eyes, though tired from a night of work, were sharp and alert. He was a man of few words and immense capability, a perfect fit for Anya's inner circle. "Good morning, ma'am. I have everything you asked for on Serena Thorne." Arya gestured for him to proceed. A detailed dossier materialized on her screen, a digital book of Serena's life, and Anya began to read. The file confirmed her suspicions. Serena Thorne's entire world was a finely crafted illusion. Her legacy fashion house, Thorne Couture, was hemorrhaging money. The bespoke gown from the night before was a loaner. Upcoming fashion show. Her family's old money was all but gone, squandered by a generation of overindulgent living. The loans she had taken out against the company were piling up, and her social standing was her last fragile asset. Anya closed the file, a plan already forming in her mind. This was not about a simple confrontation or a public dressing down. This was about a complete and utter dismantling of Serena's entire world, a meticulous revenge that would leave no stone unturned. The thought was chilling, yet thrilling. It was like a complex chess game, and Anya was a grandmaster. She started with the foundation of Serena's business, her supply chain. Anya made a series of encrypted calls, using her vast network of connections. Her first target was Thorne Couture's main textile supplier in Italy. A quiet acquisition of the supplier's debt, a carefully worded legal brief, and within hours, a major contract was on hold. Serena would not know why, only that her materials were delayed and her production was at a standstill. Next, she targeted Serena's social standing. Anya owned several high-profile digital magazines and fashion blogs under various shell companies, a fact unknown to the public. She instructed her editors to begin a subtle smear campaign. Not a direct attack, but a series of articles with thinly veiled criticisms. Titles like, "Is Thorne Couture's Legacy Fading?" and "The High Cost of Luxury, Is Authenticity a Thing of the Past?" started to appear online. The articles were filled with vague sources and anonymous quotes from industry insiders that suggested Thorne Couture was in financial trouble and that Serena herself was a difficult, demanding boss. The rumors would spread like wildfire, poisoning the well of public opinion. Anya then focused on a more direct form of retaliation. She learned that Thorne Couture was on the brink of securing a major investment from a powerful venture capital firm, a deal that would save them from certain bankruptcy. Using her own company's immense financial resources, Arya secretly created a rival offer, not for Thorne Couture, but for a smaller, more innovative, and ethically sourced fashion line. The offer was so compelling, so generous, and so unexpected that it would divert the venture capital firm's attention entirely from Serena's failing business. She didn't want to destroy Serena with a single move. She wanted to watch her flounder, to see her struggle, to let her feel the slow, suffocating pressure of a world she thought she controlled slipping through her fingers. Anya's revenge was methodical. It was not born of blind rage, but of cold, calculating logic. She didn't want to see Serena cry or beg. She wanted her to understand what it felt like to be powerless, to have her carefully constructed world unravel around her, one thread at a time. The public humiliation at the party was just the spark. The real fire was yet to come. As the days turned into a week, the effects of Anya's plan became apparent. On her private newsfeed, she saw reports of supply chain issues at Thorne Couture, with key fabrics being held up in customs or simply not arriving. The fashion blogs she owned were abuzz with whispers and rumors about Serena's financial troubles, causing a ripple effect across social media. Serena's social circle, ever fickle, started to keep their distance, wary of associating with someone who was suddenly becoming a source of negative press. Anya smiled to herself. The first phase of her plan was working perfectly. She was so engrossed in her work that she almost forgot about the waitress from the party. Her name was Maria. Arya had instructed her team to find her, and a small file was waiting for her. Maria was a single mother, working 2 jobs to put her son through a good school. The small act of humiliation from Serena had meant a great deal more to her than it had to Anya. It was a reminder of her place in the world, a cruel reality check. Anya's revenge was not just about bringing Serena down. It was also about lifting others up. It was a silent statement, a demonstration that true power was not in inherited wealth or social status, but in compassion and dignity. She instructed her head of HR to discreetly reach out to Maria and offer her a position at Advanced Global Technologies, with a salary that would allow her to quit her other jobs and focus on her son. It was a gesture of kindness, a quiet act of justice. Anya's phone rang. It was Liam, her photographer friend. "Hey Anya, guess what? Serena's fashion show is in 2 weeks. It's all anyone can talk about. The gossip sites are saying it's a make-or-break moment for her. I'm getting a bad feeling about this." Anya smiled. "Don't worry, Liam. I'm sure it will be a show to remember. In fact, I've decided I'm going to be there. And I'm going to make sure it's the most memorable night of her life." Serena Thorne's meticulously crafted world was beginning to fray at the seams. The veneer of perfection she had so painstakingly built over the years was now showing cracks, and she was the only one who could see them. It began subtly, an email from her main textile supplier in Milan, a curt, formal message informing her of a temporary delay due to unforeseen logistical complications. Serena, accustomed to her every whim being catered to, dismissed it as a minor annoyance. She made a few angry calls, but the supplier was uncharacteristically unresponsive. Then came a series of late-night calls from her accountant, his voice laced with an anxiety that sent a shiver down her spine. The loans were becoming a problem. The banks were getting impatient. Her social life, once her greatest asset, was also becoming a source of tension. The gossipy whispers that had always followed her were now turning into a dark, insidious hum. At a charity luncheon, she overheard two socialites discussing Thorne Couture's shaky financial footing. She confronted them, her voice a little too loud, her smile a little too tight, but they simply offered vague apologies and scurried away. The isolation was a new and terrifying feeling for Serena. Her phone, once buzzing with invitations and compliments, was now eerily quiet. Her so-called friends were keeping their distance, unwilling to be associated with someone who was suddenly becoming a liability. The final straw came a week before her fashion show. Her team, a group of frantic, exhausted young professionals, informed her that their two most prominent fashion bloggers, who were set to cover the show, had mysteriously canceled their attendance. They said something about a last-minute opportunity that was too good to pass up. Her PR manager stammered, wringing her hands nervously. Serena's carefully constructed composure shattered. She slammed her hand on the mahogany table, sending a stack of design sketches flying. A last-minute opportunity? What could possibly be more important than Thorne Couture's biggest show of the year? She shrieked, her voice echoing in the vast, silent room. "They're sabotaging me! Someone is trying to ruin me!" Her team exchanged nervous glances. They were used to her tantrums, but this was different. This was pure, unadulterated panic. Serena's paranoia was spiraling. She was losing her grip, not just on her business, but on her sanity. She spent her days yelling at her staff, making a series of frantic, desperate calls to her investors, and her nights staring at her phone, waiting for it to ring, waiting for the one person who could save her. Meanwhile, Anya watched from a distance, a detached observer in the digital world. She had set the wheels in motion, and now she was watching the machine work. Every frantic call Serena made, every angry email she sent, every desperate plea for help was an echo in Anya's digital surveillance network. Anya knew what was coming. She knew the show was a last-ditch effort, a desperate gamble that would either save Serena or seal her fate. And Arya had made sure it would be the latter. The day before the show, Arya called Liam. "Liam, I have a request for you. I need you to be at the Thorne Couture fashion show tomorrow night. I need you to capture everything. The good, the bad, and the ugly. No angle is off limits." Liam, who had witnessed the first act of the drama, was a natural ally. He was a professional, but he was also a man who valued justice. He agreed without question, his voice filled with a sense of purpose. He knew this was more than just a job. It was a story about a woman who had been humiliated and the powerful woman who would get her revenge. Anya spent the next day preparing for her own appearance at the gala. She had arranged for a custom gown to be delivered to her penthouse, a dress that was not only expensive but was a statement in itself. It was a gown that would turn heads, not with its glitter and glamour, but with its power and elegance. It was a gown that would scream billionaire, a gown that would tell the world who she was without a single word. The night of the show, the ballroom of the Grand Plaza Hotel was a sea of flashing cameras and a cacophony of voices. The air was thick with excitement and anticipation. The fashion world was holding its breath, waiting to see if Serena Thorne could pull off a miracle and save her failing empire. Serena herself, a vision in a stunning custom-made gown, was a bundle of nerves. Her smile was a strained mask, her eyes darting nervously around the room, as if expecting a ghost to appear. The show began with a blast of music and the first model glided down the runway. The dresses were exquisite, the designs were brilliant, and the audience was mesmerized. Serena's heart soared. It was working. The show was a success. She was a genius. She had won, but she had forgotten one thing. She had forgotten about the unseen heiress, the woman she had humiliated, the woman who was sitting in the front row, watching her with a silent, menacing smile. The Thorne Couture fashion show was a dazzling spectacle. The runway was a lit river of light, and the models, a procession of ethereal beings, showcased Serena's most ambitious collection yet. The audience, a who's who of the city's elite, was mesmerized. The air was buzzing with a nervous energy, a collective unspoken question of whether Serena could pull this off. For the first 10 minutes, it seemed she could. The gowns were stunning, the music was perfect, and the atmosphere was electric. Serena, standing in the wings, allowed herself a moment of self-congratulation. She had done it. She had silenced the critics, proved her worth, and saved her company. She was a genius. Then, the first crack appeared in her perfect world. As a model was about to turn, the music abruptly cut out. The grand symphony that had been playing was replaced by an eerie, jarring silence. A collective murmur rippled through the crowd, and Serena's heart dropped. "What happened?" She hissed at her sound engineer, her voice a frantic whisper. The engineer, a young man with a terrified look on his face, stammered that he had no idea. As if on cue, the giant screens behind the runway, which were supposed to be showcasing Thorn Couture's new collection, suddenly flickered. A different set of images appeared, a sleek, minimalist line of clothing from a little-known designer. It was a brand Serena had never heard of, but the designs were breathtaking, innovative, and utterly captivating. A few people in the audience pulled out their phones, snapping photos of the new designs, a gesture that was a death knell for a brand that was supposed to be the center of attention. Serena's face was a mask of utter horror. This was no accident. This was an attack. But who? She frantically looked around the room, searching for a face, a clue, anything that would explain this sabotage. Her eyes landed on a woman sitting in the front row, a woman she had never seen before. She was wearing a stunning, elegant black gown, a single diamond necklace resting on her neck. She was an image of pure power and elegance, a sharp contrast to the panicked, frantic Serena. But the final blow was yet to come. The head of a powerful venture capital firm, a man named Richard Sterling, who was supposed to be her saving grace, suddenly rose from his seat. He walked directly to the runway, his face a mask of disappointment. He gestured to Serena's PR manager and said in a voice loud enough for the entire front row to hear, "I'm pulling my investment. I'm sorry, but this is a disaster. It's a risk I'm not willing to take." Serena's world collapsed. The lights, the music, the glamour all faded into a blur. The whispers, the stares, the mocking smiles, they were all a deafening crescendo. She had lost. Her company was gone, her reputation was ruined, and her life was a shattered mess. She was standing in the middle of a room full of people, but she had never felt more alone. Then, a figure appeared from the shadows, a woman with a confident stride, a serene smile, and eyes that held the universe's secrets. It was Anya. She walked slowly, deliberately, her every step a statement. She walked past the now stumbling Serena, her eyes locked on Richard Sterling. She shook his hand, her smile a silent victory. "Mr. Sterling, it's a pleasure to meet you. I am Anya Vance, CEO of Vance Global Technologies. We have a new investment for you, a little-known company called Aurelia. It's a brilliant fashion brand. The designs are exquisite, and the founder is a true visionary. We have already acquired it, and we are ready to take it to the next level." Anya's voice was a low, melodic purr, but it carried the weight of 1,000 armies. She didn't have to say another word. Richard Sterling's face lit up with a knowing smile. He had been played, and he knew it. He had fallen for a trap laid by a woman he had never heard of. But he also knew a good deal when he saw one. He shook Anya's hand and said, "It's a pleasure to do business with you, Ms. Vance. We'll be in touch." As Anya turned to leave, her eyes met Serena's. Serena's face was a mask of utter shock and disbelief. She looked from Anya's face to her dress, her mind racing, her eyes widening in recognition. "You," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "It was you, the girl from the party, the nobody." Anya's smile was a silent victory. "I'm no nobody, Serena," she said, her voice a low, chilling whisper. "I'm the person who just bought your company." Serena's world came crashing down. The whispers of the crowd turned into a loud hum of gossip. The cameras, once focused on her, were now all on Anya, her every move, her every word being captured for eternity. She was a footnote in the story of her own downfall. The aftermath of the Thorn Couture fashion show was a hurricane of media coverage. The fall of Thorn Couture, Serena Thorn's grand disaster, the unseen heiress. The headlines screamed from every news outlet. The story of Anya Vance, The billionaire CEO who had brought down Serena Thorne was the talk of the town. For the first time in her life, Arya was the center of attention. She had her revenge, but the victory was bittersweet. She had proven her point, but the act of destroying someone, no matter how deserving, left a bitter taste in her mouth. The next morning, Arya returned to her penthouse, the city still sleeping below her. The only company she had was Daniel, her head of corporate intelligence. "The acquisition of Thorne Couture is complete, ma'am," he said, his voice as calm and professional as ever. "We are in the process of restructuring the company. Serena Thorne is out. Her brand is no longer a part of her life." Arya simply nodded. The victory felt hollow. She had won, but what had she really won? A company she didn't need, a reputation she didn't want, and a sense of satisfaction that was fleeting at best. She had shown the world what happened when you messed with the wrong person. But she had also exposed a part of herself she had always tried to hide. Anya's thoughts were interrupted by a knock on her door. It was Liam. He was holding a small brown paper bag. "I brought you some coffee," he said, his voice soft and gentle. "I thought you might need it." Anya smiled, a genuine smile this time. "Thank you, Liam. That's very thoughtful of you." Liam sat down on the couch, his eyes fixed on Anya. "Anya, what happened last night?" "It was amazing. You were amazing. You showed them what's what. You showed them that being rich isn't about the money. It's about the power. And you, my friend, have more power than anyone I know." Anya shook her head. "It wasn't about power, Liam. It was about justice. It was about showing Serena that you can't treat people like they're nothing. It was about showing her that there are people in this world who are not afraid to stand up to her." Liam nodded. "I know, Anya. I know. But you also showed them that the world is a different place now. It's not about the old money and the old names anymore. It's about the new blood, the new ideas, the new power." Anya was silent. Liam was right. She had not just taken revenge on Serena. She had changed the game. She had shown the world that true power was not in the name you inherited, but in the work you did. A few days later, Anya received a call from Maria, the waitress from the party. "Ma'am," Maria said, her voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you for the job. It's a dream come true. I can finally quit my other jobs and spend more time with my son. I can't thank you enough." Anya's heart swelled with a sense of purpose. This was the real victory, not the humiliation of Serena, but the lifting up of Maria. It was the act of kindness, the act of justice, that had truly made her feel powerful. She had not only punished the wicked but also rewarded the deserving. She had not only taken revenge but also restored faith. Anya's story was not over. She had a new purpose, a new mission. She would use her power and wealth to create a world where people were judged by their character, not their money. She would use her voice to speak for the voiceless. She would use her company to create opportunities for people who were not born with a silver spoon in their mouths. She would not just be an heiress, she would be a guardian.